Hello everybody, this is Rick with Two Brothers Outdoors. Welcome back to our channel. Tonight we're going to cut some 1-bys out of this hemlock log. It's a little bit crooked. I was originally going to use this log to put on siding for the mill, but I don't need it. We're done with both mills and the siding. So I think I'm going to cut this log back to 8'3", and we're going to use it for 1x3s for a special project we got going. Stick with us. I'm going to show you how to cut 1x8s out of a hemlock log. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is cut this down. I've already measured it. Right here is 8'3". So we're going to cut this down to 8'3" before we get started. It'll warm it up a little bit. I promise you, I did cut it with this saw. I didn't go get the Husqvarna. Just had to warm this up a little bit. But I did cut it with the pulling. That's our saw for the mill. Okay, so I rolled that little piece out to the firewood pile. As you can see, this is it for logs. We got that one hemlock right there. That's got a rotten center in it. And then we got those 3 yellow birch over there. That's it. We're out of logs. We have plenty of logs cut down in the woods right now. We did that last weekend. And throughout the week, we will be bringing them out Saturday. Okay, so I'm going to get this log on the mill. Put my gloves on. This was cut last fall, so I don't think there's going to be any pitch problems with this one, but some of them get pretty pitchy this time of year. Okay, I left my PV on the four-wheeler because we've been using the four-wheelers to get some logs prepared. I'm going to have to go get it before I saw because I'm going to need it to use. I'm going to need to use it to turn this log. But I can get it on the mill. All right, I'm going to run up and grab the PV real quick. All right, guys. So we're going to do what they call flat saw this log. Making 1-bys out of it. Nothing special. We want to get the log where it lays naturally on the mill. Looks pretty level. I don't have to put a toe board under this end. I got the small end pointing towards the mill. That seems to be the best way to handle these logs on a band mill, is to put the small end towards the band. We found that if you put the log with the large end towards the band sometimes has a tendency to ride up over the knots. It's because the branches grow towards the light, so I think it's easier for it to go through the knot in the crotch, so to speak, where the branch is growing upwards towards the light. All right, we're going to get this dog down and start sawing it. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little trick here. Now you see I got a dog down in the back, dog down the front. The back, I was able to use the knee. The front, I've got a big knot right here, and I'm not going to bother cutting the knot off as long as I can get by it. But in order to dog it down, instead of using the knee, put a board against the stop on the bunk and tighten the dog against it. So that'll hold the log secure enough to get a flat spot on it. The ultimate goal is to get this log flat, two sides, 8 inches thick. Okay, so let's just assume this is the first time you've ever seen a bandsaw used to cut a log. So I'm going to show you from start to finish what I'm doing. Right now, I got a torque wrench. Torque wrench is set at 35 pounds. And what I'm doing is I'm tightening the tension bolt for the blade. And I'm going to tension it to 35 pounds on the torque wrench, which I find works pretty well on this mill. Alright, so the blade tensioned, we're going to start it up and get it warmed up. Okay, so as we wait for the mill to warm up a little bit, I'm going to take this oil can and I'm going to put a couple drops of oil on the backer bearings and in the blade guides on both sides. And then I'll put a little bit of oil up on the cable guides as well, the rollers for the cable guides. Always helps to keep things oiled up. The little backer bearings on the back side of the guides, they will get water past the seals in them, and they get rust, and then they start to seize up, and then we get a bearing failure. So by putting a couple drops of oil on it before we start, sure helps extend the life of those bearings. Alright, so at this point, we're getting ready to make our first cut. We're preparing the mill. This is called opening the face of the log. Our goal is to cut this log into 1/8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the blade just below the bark at the first 4/4 increment. And the reason I'm using that 4/4 increment is because each time I run through the log to bring the log down to 8 inches wide, each piece that comes off will be 1 inch thick. And as those pieces come off that are 1 inch thick, I can cut the bark off of either side and come out with another 1x. It might be a 1x4, might be a 1x6, might be a 1x8. Regardless how wide it is, each piece that comes off this log is going to be 1 inch thick. So ultimately end up being 1x's. At this point, if I was a production sawyer, I would turn this cant 90 degrees and lock it down against the knees. But because I'm not a production sawyer, I'm going to go ahead and roll it 180 degrees, get the flat surface down on the bunks, and then I don't have to lock it down with the dogs because it'll stay in place against the stops. And I'm going to make my next cut and ultimately end up with 8 inches thick. Now, once again, I'm going to start the blade just under the bark at the first 4/4 increment on the scale. I will continue to cut this cant at 4/4 increments until I reach the 8 inch mark on the ruler scale, letting me know that the cant is 8 inches thick. Okay, so the cant is now 8 inches thick. So we're going to roll the can 90 degrees and lock it down against the knees. Now if you notice, the log is crooked. So because it's crooked, we're going to stand it up with the hump upwards. That'll make it easier to stabilize the cant to make our next cut. Alright, so after getting it locked into place, I noticed that the leading end is lower than the trailing end. So we're going to put a toe board under it and raise it up just a little bit, maybe about 2 inches. We want to get the cut as straight as possible. After you raise the mill and you start backing up over the cant, pay real close attention to some of those knots, because if you hit that knot with the blade as you're backing up, you will knock the blade off the mill, and it will dull the blade because it'll hit the shroud. Alright, so we're going to roll this can 180 degrees. We're going to lock it down, and we're going to start ripping off some boards. Let's see how many 1x8s we can get out of this crooked log. Okay, so we're going to start cutting in 1-inch increments again, just below the bark. Now this log is crooked, so it's going to take a few cuts to get down to solid boards. Alright, so our goal is to cut 20 of these 1x8s. We ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we got 7 done. That leaves us 13 to go. That's not too bad. That's only one log. I'm going to get a couple of 1x6s out of these flitches that I took off, which I'm going to saw right now. And the rest is all scrap. That was a pretty crooked log, so I don't think it was too bad. Okay, so I stacked them right here. They're going to be under the building until we get a chance to stack them up on the trailer and put some covers over them. Alright, so normally I would sticker these to keep them from getting blue stain, turning gray. But these boards are going to be used for a deer blind. So I'm thinking if they get a little bit of blue stain and gray on them, that's going to help the situation all that much more. But if this was for a customer, I would normally put stickers between these to keep them from blue staining. Blue stain is a kind of a fungus. Alright, let's get those 2 flitches right there on the mill, and we'll cut them into 1x6s, and then we're going to call it a night. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stand the knees up. And then I'm going to put the flitches on. Now we got a pretty straight edge on this side and on this side, so it really doesn't matter which side you put down. But normally you want to put the straightest side down. Now this one's pretty crooked. I don't even know if I'm going to get a 6-inch flitch out of this one, or 6-inch wide board, I mean. But we're going to give it a try. So notice this one is humped up in the center. So we're going to put the hump up. Always put the hump up when you make your first cut, even on a log. All right, make sure this is stable enough. All right, I'm going to cut the edges off of these. See what we got. I'm going to measure from the bunk to the bark. And right now it looks like the lowest point is about 7¼ inches. So I'm going to make my first cut at 7 inches. Alright, so we ended up with 7 1x8s, 1 1x6, 1 by 1. Boy, has a tongue twister. 1x4. 1 1x4. Alright, so we're done with the mill. If you notice, I let this down and I checked these cables. You want these cables loose so when you let the mill down when you're done with it. And then you want to back off the tension on the blade. Leaving tension on the blade puts flat spots on your belts, and it also has a tendency to stretch the blade if it sits long enough. Alright, so that's going to conclude tonight's video. That is going to conclude sawing up this log into 1x8s. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it was informational for you. Leave some comments down there for us. We'll get back to you on those. Tell me what you think. Alright guys, we appreciate you watching. Hit that subscribe button, thumbs up, notifications bell. You know the drill. If you're new to our channel, hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe. Alright guys, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. Until the next one, and we get some more logs out, we'll catch you then.